Alright, so I just got back from the Last Jedi, so it's fresh. So I thought I'd share some of my thoughts. Um, I loved it. It was a really good movie. Now, obviously, there's going to be some spoilers here. So if you haven't seen it yet, don't watch this at all. Um, so from the trailer, we saw the scene where Kylo Ren was going to have a choice whether or not to shoot where his mother was or not. And I told my friend Derek even early on. I said, and we both kind of agreed, he's not going to do it. But someone else in the First Order is going to, one of the TIE fighters with him, or not, might. And sure enough, that happened. But I was really surprised because she just flies out of the window, and I thought, oh wow, she can't be dead yet. The trailers have her in it later, but maybe. Maybe that was just to fool us. And so that was my reaction there. I was like, oh man. And then of course we see her out there. I'm like, could it be the Force? Is she okay? And sure enough, she brings herself back onto the ship, which I thought was a really kind of a cool scene and really magical. My wife thought it was a little weird, and I'm sure many of you did too. But it was cool to see some new Force powers in this movie. Let's see what else. When Kylo and Rey fought Snoke, and his guards, that was a very interesting scene, and I think all of us were like, yeah, Kylo's going to the good side, and of course that wasn't the case, and even though that was an awesome scene, I think it didn't go with our expectations, which I think was a positive thing in this sense, is that this movie went very different from our expectations. So there was Yoda. That was another cool thing. That was that was really awesome. It was weird at first because you could tell Yoda was a puppet. He looked a little different than he did even in the original trilogy, but he looked a lot closer than he did with the CG Yoda. But what I really, brought back those feelings from the original trilogy. What I really liked about Yoda is that his character matched the original trilogy a lot better than the prequels did. Instead of being in the prequels, he was a lot kind of almost a grouch in some ways, and then the Empire Strikes Back, he was a little goofy at times, which he was in the Last Jedi as well. And then I thought it was a really neat scene, and the whole theme of this movie was, okay, we're going to let the past die. There's a new future ahead of us. So I think Rian Johnson did a wonderful job of kind of, using very little of the nostalgia, I felt like. But there were times when he would, for instance, when Snoke puts the lightsaber down on his chair, it's like, oh, this is the scene from Return of the Jedi. And then of course Rey uses the Force to get the lightsaber, and it flies around, hits her in the back of the head, comes back to Snoke, and it's like, oh, that's not quite like Return of the Jedi. And so I think Rian Johnson did really good at kind of setting our expectations, like, okay, we've seen this is what's going to happen, and then totally going away from that. I thought he did a brilliant job of that. It was cool to see Gareth Edward in the scene of the guys like Salt, and he was sitting right next to him. I was like, oh look, there's the cameo. And then I kept wondering why. I was a little confused at the end, and I wondered, okay, is Luke, is his hair's darker again? Maybe he shaved it. Just, I don't know, something looked kind of, I was confused by that. And then he has the lightsaber. I'm like, oh, he rebuilt it the same way, and this is going to be what those rumors we heard of, a new color of lightsaber. And then it was blue, and then I was just super confused. But it was a really cool little battle there. But then of course you find out it was all an illusion. So very, very neat. I what I'd always said to some of my friends, that I hope Luke doesn't go out in some battle. I hope he goes kind of walking off in the sunset like they had originally planned for him. I said whether that means he goes back to Tatooine or what, but just kind of leave it ambiguous. As that scene was happening, I thought, oh, is he going to disappear? And yes, he did. And that was, literally looking off into the sunset, not necessarily walking off into the sunset, but looking off into the sunset, and then we see that magical moment of the two suns, and I found that very symbolic. The two sons of Tatooine, which S-O-N we know to be Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker, and so this scene was very symbolic of his reunion with his father, Anakin and Luke being reunited again, and I thought that was really, really powerful. I loved the line that Rose gave after saving Finn, saying, "Let's not fight against the things we hate, but let's fight for the things we love," and or something along those lines. And that's something I've noticed even in our society lately is we're all seems like we all find things to fight against, but we're not necessarily finding things to stand up for and fight for, and so I think that was a very good line. And then yeah, I mean, it was just overall I really enjoyed the movie. It was a different feel. It was a different Star Wars movie, and I think that's the way it needed to go. I think it was beautifully done. I think that's what made Empire Strikes Back so good, is that it was different from the first one. I think even Return of the Jedi was different from all three, and so that's why it was so good. I did enjoy The Force Awakens. I think Rey was my favorite character in The Force Awakens. I loved all the new characters, but in The Last Jedi, I think Luke was definitely a highlight character in that one. And I'm anxious to see where this goes. And that end scene, is that what does that mean? Is that a hint or a sneak peek at Rian Johnson's new trilogy? Is that who it's going to focus on? I don't know. I'm anxious to see where this goes, but overall I think that was a very good movie, in my opinion, one of the best Star Wars movies, especially at least in recent years, and I think Rian Johnson hit it out of the park. So that's my review. I'd say one thing I didn't love was the Benicio del Toro's character. It just almost seemed thrown in there. And I don't know. Maybe it'll serve more purpose, or when I go back and watch it again, but at the time it just seemed a little like, okay, whatever, But it was a good movie, and I definitely one of my top ones. Let me know what you think, and Force be with you.